We employ almost 20,000 people. If we say that each one of these people has a family of 4, so we're talking about 80,000 people who rely on Oriental Weavers Group. I feel that that's a big obligation and a big burden that we carry on our shoulders, and it scares me.
And also my son, I don't expect him to join the business. If he'd like to, then I'd be more than happy.
Let's move on to a difficult subject, which you both shared with me as being obviously a major pivot for both of you, which is, of course, the passing of your father. Massive presence in your world and a massive presence on the Egyptian business landscape as well. Tell me, first of all, on a personal level, obviously, I know that he had been ill for a while.
Right.
You both took a step back. You went with him to America to be next to him and help him and so on.
You're right. Our father played a big role both professionally and personally for us. And he was, like Yasmine said, he would call us 2-3 times a day. He was very loving, very caring, very busy at work, but always there for us no matter what, and spoilt us tremendously. And he was there for everyone, not just for us. So although the family business has grown to employ over maybe 20,000 just as Oriental weavers, everyone saw him as their father too.
I had a similar situation with my father. He had Parkinson for about 10 years, and the last year was very hard. When you see your rock, your idol, this big man suddenly diminished into a child and needing you and unable to do anything for themselves, it's a very difficult thing to see. I found it extremely hard to deal with. Having said that, we dealt with it on a personal side. When he passed away, my mother and I grieved him. We still grieve him. It was 2 years ago. But we didn't have this other layer that you have, which is almost immediately having to deal with the personal, which is traumatic and it takes a very long time. On top of that, having this professional element that you have to address, and you can't really say not now, because you had said not now for 3 months.
Even during the 3 months, we were swapping. So if
Yeah.
Yasmine had something important in Egypt, she'd come back to Egypt, check on her kids and my son, and then we'd keep swapping. Every other week, sometimes we travel once the holidays were over
Yeah.
for the kids the summer. And then after that, I think maybe it didn't delay grieving, but it forced us to kind of jump back in and get our lives together and focus. And at that point, we just had to face it and throw ourselves back into life.
Had he overtly said to you, this is a direction I would like the company to go in? Or had it been an undercurrent that was agreed together? Or had he said, this is what I want from you girls?
He was very vocal. We
Yeah.
all knew what his passions were. He was an entrepreneur. He established Oriental Weavers Carpets in 1979. And from day one, he said, we are going to export. So since then, we've been exporting on average 70% of our capacity. We're very tailor-made. We're very artsy. We're very creative. We're very innovative. So he set the tone, which we all followed. So he didn't need to tell us that towards the end. And as Oriental Weavers, was one of his babies to begin with and was the flagship company of the group. 10 years before he passed away, or even more, he had lost interest. He stopped coming to the factory. He stopped being involved on a day-to-day basis. I had taken over, and he was establishing his newer, babies.
An entrepreneur is always an entrepreneur.
Yes.
There's always the next thing,
New
right?
passion.
And I used to be jealous. I'd be like, aren't you coming? And he'd be like, no, I'm going to the British University, because he believed in education and he believed in giving back to the community. And that was his latest kind of passion, education.
There's a saying that you're the second generation of the business, that most family businesses do not last after the third generation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that that is probably a very fundamental part of your legacy, or how you would look back at your work. is to make sure that the company is solid for those next generations?
I'm working really hard to turn Oriental Weavers from a family business to an international business.
And it's
A
listed, so it's a
conglomerate,
bit different.
an
It's not really
organization,
family.
exactly. From what used to be operated or run like that, but to become really a business that doesn't depend on people, doesn't depend on family members at all. And we've made a lot of progress this year. So no, to be honest, when my children, tell me things like, Mom, do I have to do this? Aren't I going to work with you? And I say, no, you don't have to.
You don't
work
have
with
Their
me.
choice.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't want you to work there unless you're going to bring something, unless you're going to have something to add. So what would I like my legacy to be when I'm gone? If that's what you're asking, I think just, honesty, integrity, leading by example, keeping all those homes open.
Yeah.
Like Farida said a while ago, we employ almost 20,000 people. If we say that each one of these people has a family of 4, so we're talking about 80,000 people who rely on Oriental Weavers Group. I feel that that's a big obligation and a big burden that we carry on our shoulders, and it scares me. And it's something, I'm very conscious of, and I feel like we owe it to our community.
And you, Farida?
For me, I believe my legacy kind of is to continue our father's legacy. So basically, his name is connected to the British University. So quality of education, which was really what the British University was about. So improving it as much as I can, offering the scholarships that he continued or that we continue to offer that he used to for, children from Africa or students from Africa, from Egypt, from different governorates. And also the community service he did. He had a lot of NGOs that Yasmine and I continue to support personally. We're finishing a mosque that we started building after his passing in the 10th of Ramadan city. A huge mosque, actually.
Which is where your factory is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So trying to continue his name through our names and also my son, I don't expect him to join the business. If he'd like to, then I'd be more than happy. But that's it. Just I think it's more about our integrity, our names, our reputation, the company's reputation.
And how do you juggle the office, the persona or the role you have work-wise, and then, it's no longer a 5 p.m. leaving the office scenario. No one does it anymore. But that idea of what happens in the office stays in the office, what happens after. How do you manage that? Because you are sisters, you're very close, you share the same friends, you travel together. How do you manage that?
We don't. I think very often.
I do a bit more than Yasmine.
No, but wait.
How do you mean?
Very often we catch up on business-related topics in the plane.
That's true.
Oh, really?
On the plane when we're
Interesting.
traveling. Because we don't see one another very often because we're each in a, separate professional life. So what happens is we have family lunch almost religiously every Friday. But then we have our children, we have my mother.
You have family things to talk about.
Family things to talk about, more or less. So that's only about the very pressing matters. Obviously, thank God for text and WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Because there's a hotline there.
Yeah, of course.
But very often when we get on a plane together, it's like, we're talking about old topics that we hadn't had a chance to clear or lock in or agree on. At least for the first couple of hours.
We had an interview last week at AUC, and the photographer was laughing because he said, we want to take a couple of shots with you as if you're walking naturally and pretend you're speaking. So he said, you're actually speaking about important topics. So it was quite funny.
I guess also because your roles are so clearly defined at the office and you do have such clear, different remits, maybe there isn't that much overlap, exactly as you said. And so when you do meet to discuss it, you meet to discuss it. Exactly. And the rest of the time, it's family related.
We take each other's opinions about a lot of things. So even if Yasmine's not related to something that's happening at the British University, I'll call her and say, how do I handle this issue? And with her too, sometimes she'll say, do you have a contact in this ministry? So a lot of times she'll call the ministry that she's closer to or the person, and I would. But what I meant by that sometimes I am better at separating the roles is that, especially lately, I'm always telling Yasmine that she needs to take a break from her phone. If we're out, she's always answering her
Checking it.
emails and busy responding to her emails. So I say, that's it. Just focus, enjoy your time.
Be present.
Exactly.
But that's probably a result of your wellness journey.
Exactly. Right.
Your awareness of being in the moment.
And I'm always sending her things. Sometimes she appreciates them. Sometimes she's not in the mood for that.
I watched the video you sent me this morning.
I sent her a video about Dr. Joe Dispenza and being present and, not getting overwhelmed with your future and your life.